What is going on, everybody? We have a spicy mono blue commander deck for you, and it is completely different than any deck you've seen before. Let's go. What up, what up, what up? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Roxora, and here we do all things Magic the Gathering. Today we are doing another Commander deck tech where I take a look at a decklist submission, talk about the Commander, the overall strategy of the deck, as well as the individual card choices. And at the end, I will give it a rating out of 10. Today's submission comes from a friend of the channel, Progresso, so thank you to him for the submission. Before we get into the actual deck list, it would really help me out if you would leave a like, comment, subscribe, as well as follow me over at twitch.tv/roxoro098. Really help me out, and I love sharing my knowledge and experience in the game with other people. All right, let's go ahead and get into the commander and the list. All right, so our commander here is none other than Orvar the All Form, which is 3 to blues, 4 mana for a legendary creature shapeshifter. It's got the changeling ability, which means it's all creature types. Not really going to come up in this list. We really care about this second ability that says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, if it targets one or more permanents you control, create a token that's a copy of one of those permanents. So we're going to be targeting our stuff with instants and sorceries, copying them, and yeah. And we'll see how we will take advantage of that. The other ability here, I don't believe can ever come up. Yeah, it says whenever a spell or ability an opponent controls would cause you to discard this card, you create a copy that's a token that's a copy of target permanent. So yeah, so there's no way for us to discard this unless somehow it ends up in our hands. I guess if it gets bounced and then somebody like does like a time twister effect, I guess maybe, or something like that. So maybe then, but yeah. Otherwise, really just using this second ability and using it to the fullest extent. And I guess it's also a 3/3, but again, don't really care about that. Yeah, so I bet everyone is pretty curious as to how we are going to use and abuse this card. So let's get to the deck list. All right, so here is the deck list. Again, we've got Orvar here as our only commander, obviously. And what we essentially have here is this kind of combo control deck. We've got essentially a bunch of these effects that target either a creature or land or any permanent. And so there are a lot of ways that we can use this to really drastic effect. So I'm not really sure the best way to kind of go over this deck. Again, it's a little bit like kind of all over the place. Before I go any further, I will just preface again, the deck is pretty expensive and it's a lot of, I guess not any particular card, but the way the deck plays is very, very powerful. So, if you are, playing in a group that's a little bit more lower powered, especially in a slower group, even in a fast-paced format, this deck can do some pretty broken things. Played against this deck a couple of times, and it looks pretty bonkers. So yeah, so let me just go over. I guess let's go over the creatures first. So we've got Snapcaster Mage. We've got a bunch of wizards here. Because we also have Vidalcan Aether Mage, which has a wizard cycling, as well as there's another one here, Step Through. So there's a lot of different ways that we can get access to these wizards and kind of use and abuse them. Snapcaster Mage here giving a instant sorcery flashback. So any of these spells that we're going to talk about here, all the instants and sorceries, can use this to recast. And then once it's on the battlefield, we can kind of use those spells that we've already used to target Snapcaster Mage. And thanks to Orvar's effect is going to make more Snapcaster Mages. So you can kind of see how that can kind of go off. Another cool target here is Spellstutter Sprite. I think this is a spirit. This is not a fairy. That's not a fairy. But if you just have Spellstutter Sprite out, it can counter a 1 mana spell, which, as we know, is really, really powerful between countering things like Brainstorm, Mental Misstep, Miscast, Mystical Tutor, and other things, Imperial Seal, Lightning Bolt. So there's a ton of these things that this card can counter the turn it comes down, and then after it's on the battlefield, again, anytime you target it with an instant or sorcery, Orvar will make a copy of it. That Spellstutter Sprite will enter the battlefield, see 2 Spellstutter Sprites on the battlefield, and so it can counter a 2 mana spell. So you can already kind of see again how this card can kind of go off with Orvar in play. Vidalcan Aether Mage here, we don't really care about its the fact that it has flash or that it comes into play and bounces a sliver. We definitely don't care about that. We care that it has wizard cycling. Against that, we can get access to Spellstutter Sprite, Snapcaster Mage, and Archmage Emeritus and Arcanist here. So yeah, that's why that's there. We've also got a non-wizard here in Wavebreak Hippocamp. I really like this card. It allows you to draw cards pretty much on each of your opponent's turns. And if you ever target it again while you've got Orvar on the battlefield, you start drawing multiple cards each turn. During each of your opponent's turns. So that can kind of really, again, go nuts. So really interesting kind of use of this card. Again, not the most powerful card by itself, but when you combine it with Orvar, it can really be powerful. Same thing here with Archmage Emeritus. It's a very similar effect, but it is a little bit easier to kind of abuse. It's a little bit more expensive. Again, I love this card. I love casting spells, and like any spell slinging deck I can find. Phyrexian Metamorph is very similar to kind of all of these, what Orvar wants to do, wants to copy things. This is able to copy an artifact as well, so that's really nice. So then you can, do even more stuff. So you copy somebody else's, artifact, and then you make more of them with Orvar using anything that can target an artifact or a permanent. But most of the time, you're probably going to be targeting your own stuff. All right, and then we've got Spectral Arcanist here, which in the games I've played against this deck looked really nuts. It's essentially Snapcaster Mage, but it takes a little while or a little bit more to enable. So when it enters battlefield, you cast an instant or sorcery with mana value less than or equal to the number of spirits you control, and then it does the whole exiling thing, everything else kind of with flashback. So when it comes down, you can cast a 1 mana spell. But then afterwards, you can again do the Orvar thing and target it with, spells, copy it more, and then you can start casting more and more spells. And what you'll kind of see here is like there's also a ton of these one mana spells that target creatures. So Thermal Flux is a good one. Twiddle is another one. So like all of these cards can kind of really be, sorry, I gotta silence my phone. Can kind of easily go off when Spectral Arcanist and Orvar are on the battlefield. So you can play it, play Arcanist with Orvar on the battlefield, cast your Dream's Grip, then it enters battle. You get a copy of Arcanist, you get Alter Reality, so then you can kind of see where it goes from there, and you can keep on making more and more and more and more. All right, so those are the creatures. You can again kind of see how you do things. The other thing that this deck can really do well is copy lands. And so again, there's a ton of these cards like Twiddle and Mind Games. Again, I can go all of these individually, but really really not worth it. So then you can target lands, make more copies of lands. Again, this cares about targeting any permanent other than Orvar. So, artifacts, enchantments, lands, any of them can work really, really well with Orvar. Okay, so let's see. So here we have, some more spells. So we've got Architect's Will. This, draws, or sorry, not draws a card. I guess it draws a card because it, you have a Merfolk in Orvar. And then you get another land essentially every time you cast this card. We've got Gip Probe just for it's a good card. You got Merchant Scroll to help find some of our stuff. Same thing with Solve the Equation. Step Through here can be cast, but really again it's here to find our wizards. And then we've got Temporal Manipulation here, which is an extra turn spell, which you might think, okay, why would you want to do that? It doesn't target anything. And the reason why we do that is because we have Mystic Sanctuary in our mono blue deck, of course. And the way that works is we can, again, use some of our spells here, like Architect's Will, or anything that targets a land or a permanent, to target Mystic Sanctuary and then bring back Temporal Manipulation. And so that's another way that this deck can kind of go infinite or make really powerful plays, is just by casting spells to target your Mystic Sanctuary and then continue to get back and cast Temporal Manipulation. We could talk about some of the instants here as well. I mean, we've got brain card draw here. We've got some counter spells. Dizzy spell is good because it is both a targeting spell as well as a transmute for things that you really want, like High Tide. High Tide does really, really well when you are copying or untapping and doing lots of things with your islands. So that can kind of go nuts. Let's see. We got Mind Games here, which has buyback, which is really interesting. So with High Tide, that can kind of also do things. More counter spells and more tutors. We've got some removal here in Pongify and Rapid Hybridization. Because we are playing mono blue, we're a little bit limited in what we can do. Kind of the same thing here with Suspend. Swan Song, targeting stuff. Ultra Reality here has Flashback, which is nice. We've got Arcane Denial, so we've got some counter spells here. Arcane Denial, counter spell. Of course, we've got Cyclonic Rift because that's a must-have. Dramatic Reversal is here because we have ourselves Isochron Scepter. If we're able to make enough of, let's say we have Soul Ring or something like that, then we can go infinite with Isochron Scepter plus, where is it? The Dramatic Reversal. So that's always an out. See, we got more stuff that targets. Mana Drain. Muddle the Mixture is a great one. Again, another one that grabs a 2-mana spell. It's also another counter spell. We've got Pull from Tomorrow for some card draw. So if we have a bunch of lands, or maybe we cast High Tide or something like that, Pull from Tomorrow can just draw us a bunch of cards. Let's see, we've got more stuff that targets, not all of these, by the way, target everything. Again, we've got Dizzy Spell that targets a creature, but then we've got things up here like Crystal Spray, which can target any permanent or a spell, but again, we're targeting our permanents here. Fierce Guardianship, counter spells, more stuff. We've got a War of Invention here to find some of our important artifacts here, mainly being the Isochron Scepter, but you can also find things like Expedition Map to help you find your Mystic Sanctuary. You can also find this Curse Totem here, which will shut off activated abilities of creatures. And we don't really care about that because we don't have any activated abilities over here. These are all triggered abilities. Force of Will and Misdirection here for obvious reasons. All right. So those are all of the instances. Again, I didn't go over all of them, but again, a lot of them are kind of the same. They're all very replaceable. You can take a look at the list. All right, for our artifacts here, we've got Chrome Mox, Jeweled Lotus, Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Felwar Stone, and Mind Stone. As fast mana, we've got Sapphire Medallion here because we're casting a lot of blue spells. And then the other one here that I didn't mention is Eidolon of Oblivion, which is really good when we're making lots of tokens. Just 2 mana to draw a card every turn. And then, you can even go even more with this when you can use things like Twiddle with Orvar to make more than one copy of it. So you use it, to copy Idol, and then the Idol that is made is a token, so you can use both of them to draw a card right away. So really, really powerful card in this deck. I've seen this card really go off. I think that's it for the artifacts. Just a lot of fast mana. Jeweled Lotus is kind of the nuts here, where you just get to go turn 1 Orvar, and it's really easy to do. We've got Mystic Remora here, and as well as Ristic Study for the kind of disruption or taxing effects. Similar, we've got Back to Basics, and then we've got this Steel Enchantment here, which, I guess is just kind of being played because, again, Mystic Remora and Ristic Study are very, very commonly played, so you can kind of steal them, and then you could even, do more, stealing if you were to somehow target your Steel Enchantment. So that can kind of be really interesting. The lands here, nothing too crazy. Again, we've got War Room here for card draw, Urza Saga here to help us find our important artifacts, Jeweled Lotus, Expedition Map, Soul Ring. Yeah. I think it's just those. Yeah, it's actually just those. Those are really important though. This is a really interesting one, which is a land that can only be tapped twice, but taps for 2 mana each time. And so if you're copying this, you can continue to have it add 2 mana, and again, it just kind of goes nuts. Otawara for a little bit more disruption. Ibn Rivulet for mill, I guess. You can mill yourself, you can mill other people. Gemstone Cavern is more for fast mana. The Colosseum here, really only good if you're like flooding, but again, there's very little cost. And then we've got Cavern of Souls here just to prevent against some counter spells. It works really well with Orvar so that you can name Wizard here and it protects most of your creatures as well as Orvar, again, since it is a changeling. So I guess the changeling does kind of matter in this instance, but I digress. Let's see. What else would I like to comment on with this list? Not too much. I will say, so again, moving more to kind of the general notions about this deck, I'll say it's very complicated. It's not just a deck that you can pick up and play. Definitely going to have to, play it a lot and get used to it, just because the card choices, again, are a bit odd, besides again the more meta cards like Ristic Study and solve the equation, all of that stuff. Otherwise the deck is very unique and kind of needs to be learned, but it looks really fun. Again, I harp on this all the time, but I love that Commander allows for cards that would normally not be used and would be pretty bad, to all of a sudden become these really, really powerful effects. So again, like Architect's Will. When would this card ever be used? Here it's really, really good, because it allows us to target our stuff and we get copies of them. So I really like seeing that from lists. And just that's what I like about Commander, is we have these cards that would normally not be used and all of a sudden become really, really powerful. Let's see. Yeah, that's pretty much the list. It's fairly straightforward. You got your creatures, you got Orvar, you copy your stuff, you cast spells, you do more stuff, you copy more stuff. That's really it. But again, the lines that you can do, I guess, are a little bit more complicated. Let's say it's easy to learn, harder to master. That's a good way to kind of tie that bow there. Aside from that, what would I give this deck out of 10? I think this is pretty solid 10. I mean, I could kind of go through and nitpick, at certain things, maybe try and dig, but I really don't think I can do any better than Progresso here. And yeah, I'm not going to try. So I'm going to say that this is a 10. I don't see any cards in here that are odd, that are bad, that I would remove, that I don't see any straight up, better cards that I can think of. It's all very cohesive. It all makes a lot of sense when you tie everything together. So yeah. A really awesome list from Progresso. Hope you guys like it. I will leave a link for everyone to kind of look at this if you want to swipe it up, try it out in your groups, or just kind of use it as a sense of inspiration, or just look at it. Yeah. All right, guys, that's gonna do it for me. Again, I hope you guys enjoyed. I try and do these as much as I can, and I'm always looking for submissions. On that note, if you would like to have one of your Commander decks reviewed, you can do so by leaving a link in the comments. You can also join my Discord, and that would be a much quicker way to get your lists to me, much more direct way. Link in the description. Again, we have a dedicated channel just for Commander lists for this series, so go ahead and check that out. All right, sounds good. Again, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys for the next video.